immunize the global population, we discussed EU-India cooperation on this matter. I'm also happy to announce the EU and India are opening a new important chapter in our relationship. We are the world's two largest democracies. We are natural partners in many areas. A robust partnership based on shared values and converging interests will benefit our citizens, the Indo-Pacific region, and the wider world. We have today agreed on concrete steps to expand this strategic partnership. Today, we agreed to launch negotiations on mutually reinforcing agreements on trade, on investment protection, and on geographical indications. This is an important first step. We are also launching our new connectivity partnership, and this is a major project that will promote high standard infrastructure for sustainable and resilient economic growth and foster exchanges between our people. We have resumed our human rights dialogue after 8 years, and this is very good news, because human rights, gender equality, and equal opportunities are at the heart of our engagement with India. And pure security cooperation is growing in many areas, from securing maritime routes to combating terrorism and fighting cybercrime. Today, we showed the strength of the EU-India relationship and its great potential. Nous avons aussi eu hier soir l'occasion d'avoir un échange de vues sans conclusion écrite sur la question du Covid-19. Je voudrais résumer brièvement les quelques points qui traduisent le débat politique qui est intervenu dans le cadre de cette réunion informelle du Conseil européen. Premier point, de manière générale, nous constatons des progrès significatifs sur le plan européen en termes de production et de distribution de doses de vaccins. C'est un point qui a été salué de manière générale par l'ensemble des délégations, mentionnant le rôle important joué à cet égard par la Commission européenne. Deux, nous mesurons bien que nous devons rester vigilants, attentifs s'agissant de la question des mutants et des variants. Un monitoring permanent est nécessaire, nous le menons, et la nécessité de continuer à soutenir activement la science et la recherche est nécessaire également sur ce sujet-là. 3, nous avons eu un débat et un échange en lien avec l'avancement de notre ambition de développer une même approche en termes de Digital Green Certificate, de certificat Covid. Les trilogues ont démarré dans le cadre de la responsabilité de la présidence portugaise et nous avons considéré que c'était important lors du prochain Conseil européen qui devrait avoir lieu à Bruxelles le 25 mai de revenir sur ce sujet pour s'assurer que des progrès auront été réalisés et que l'on pourra tenter de résoudre les quelques difficultés auxquelles nous sommes encore confrontés afin de pouvoir progressivement retrouver une capacité de circuler en Europe grâce à cet instrument commun que nous souhaitons mettre en place. Et puis, le quatrième point qui a animé nos débats, c'est bien sûr l'engagement de l'Union européenne pour la solidarité internationale. Nous le savons, vous le savez, personne ne sera en sécurité face à cette pandémie de Covid-19 si le monde entier n'est pas protégé, si le monde entier n'est pas en sécurité. Et c'est pour laquelle, depuis le premier jour de cette mobilisation à l'échelle européenne il y a plus d'1 an contre le Covid-19, nous avons affirmé cette solidarité. D'abord, en mobilisant beaucoup de moyens pour la recherche et contribuer à faire en sorte que rapidement des vaccins puissent être disponibles pour l'humanité. Ensuite, en participant activement à cette initiative COVAX pour veiller à ce que dans tous les pays du monde, des doses puissent être accessibles. L'Union européenne est un contributeur majeur de ce projet COVAX. 3, en veillant, et c'est un point essentiel, à ce qu'au départ de l'Union européenne, des exportations de vaccins soient possibles. Et c'est autour de 50% des doses qui sont produites sur le sol européen qui sont exportées, ce qui témoigne de notre solidarité, de notre engagement à maintenir les chaînes d'approvisionnement ouvertes. Et on encourage tous nos partenaires, y compris les pays producteurs de vaccins, à suivre cet exemple en protégeant et en maintenant les chaînes d'approvisionnement et en veillant en sorte que les exportations soient possibles. Bien sûr, nous avons eu le débat aussi sur la question de la propriété intellectuelle des vaccins et cette libéralisation de la propriété intellectuelle des vaccins. Différents sentiments ont été exprimés, opinions ont été exprimées par rapport à cela. Nous sommes déterminés à soutenir tous les éléments qui peuvent conduire à augmenter la production sur le plan mondial et la délivrance rapide de vaccins. Cependant, à court terme, beaucoup d'entre nous autour de la table pensent que ce n'est pas une solution magique qui résoudrait tout. Cependant, il va de soi que nous sommes prêts à rester engagés sur des débats extrêmement concrets. C'est par exemple ce que nous faisons en Europe depuis quelque temps déjà avec des pays africains pour tenter de stimuler le partenariat privé, public avec le support des institutions européennes pour que l'on puisse concrètement augmenter les capacités de production et veiller à la diversification aussi des chaînes d'approvisionnement dans les secteurs pharmaceutiques. Et puis, enfin, last but not least, the social commitment, the social ambition. This was yesterday a very important meeting with a very strong participation yesterday during this high-level summit of many heads of state and heads of government, which is a very clear signal, a very clear symbol of this European ambition at the social level. And we remember 4 years ago in Gothenburg, a first important step under the leadership of Stefan Löfven. 4 years later, with this very strong commitment of Antonio Costa and the President of the Commission, we take and are taking one more step, one important step in the direction of a more social Europe. La réunion de hier a été une réunion enthousiasmante parce que nous mesurons qu'au-delà des différences entre les différents pays européens, entre les différents acteurs de la société économique, sociale, la société civile, les acteurs politiques, il y a de plus en plus une convergence fondée sur cette conviction que la dignité de chaque Européen, elle passe par la capacité à consolider un modèle social européen. Les débats ont été riches, les débats ont été vifs. La Commission a mis sur la table un plan d'action qui est une épine dorsale qui va animer le débat démocratique européen au sens noble du terme tout au long des prochains mois. Et il y a un élément important que je voudrais souligner parce qu'il mérite de l'être, me semble-t-il. Pour la première fois, avec une grande clarté, il y a l'expression, au travers des conclusions qui ont été validées à l'unanimité ce matin par les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, cette ambition de traiter aussi au plus haut niveau du Conseil européen, cette ambition sociale, cet engagement aussi de revenir régulièrement au niveau des chefs d'État et de gouvernement pour apprécier, pour monitorer les progrès que nous espérons pourront être réalisés dans les prochains mois, dans les prochaines années, pour consolider cet engagement social de l'Union européenne. Vous l'avez compris, une Europe plus verte qui prend à bras-le-corps le défi du changement climatique, une Europe plus digitale qui considère qu'il y a là un levier pour la modernisation, mais aussi pour le renforcement de la prospérité, et une Europe plus sociale qui veille à ce qu'il y ait de la fraternité, de la solidarité et un accès égal aux chances et aux opportunités pour l'ensemble des citoyens européens. Voilà le chemin qui a été dessiné aujourd'hui à Porto. Et merci encore à Anthony pour ta mobilisation et pour ton engagement.
In Porto, I'd like to thank Antonio Costa for his support.
Thank you so much. First of all, I also want to thank you, Antonio, for being such an outstanding host and very intensive, highly interesting 2 days, indeed, starting with the Social Summit. As we had a long press conference yesterday, I want to focus on the 2 other topics today, the COVID-19 and, of course, the summit, the EU-India summit. What COVID-19 is concerned, I updated leaders on the good progress we have with our vaccination campaign. We have now delivered over 200 million doses to the European people. So we are on track to achieve our objective of enough doses being delivered in July to vaccinate 70% of the European adult population. Of course, delivering vaccine doses is good, but vaccination is even better. So the numbers here are close to 160 million Europeans now have already received a first shot of the vaccine. That's over 25% of the EU population. This is good news, and we will continue like this. A topic that was important is, of course, that everybody is thinking about the summer season. And I understand how important that is. It is important for people to plan ahead their holidays. It is so important for workers in tourism, hospitality, or in the transport sector who hope to be once again in employment, and for businesses, of course, in those sectors who are expecting to start their recovery. To achieve this, vaccination is indeed the key parameter, but we must also enable travel within and to the European Union. So I updated yesterday the leaders on the progress in this area. I'm glad to report that the legal and the technical work on the EU travel certificate, the vaccination certificate, is on track for the system to be operational in June. There are two different approaches that are important there. One is the political front. Here, thanks to the excellent job done by the Portuguese presidency in the Council, as well as the Parliament's speed in reaching a position, we can realistically aim to have a political agreement by the end of this month, and this would allow for the system to be rolled out and people to carry with them unfalsifiable proof that they have been vaccinated, or they have a negative, mutually recognized test, or they have overcome COVID and thus antibodies. There was another point I could report on yesterday, because of course this is one track now to overcome the pandemic here through the vaccination campaign. But of course we must not let our guard down, and we must prepare for the future. And therefore I was glad that I could announce that we now concluded the negotiations with BioNTech Pfizer for a new contract looking forward to the years 22 and 23. The new contract secures 1.8 billion doses of vaccines, mainly because there are three more topics that are clear for us we have to cover with potential vaccines. The first topic is sooner or later, children and teenagers will be vaccinated. For that, we have to prepare. Second, there is the question of how long does the immunity last with the first two shots of vaccination. So when is it necessary after a certain amount of time to give a boost for the vaccination for the whole European population again? And of course, the big and important topic of escape variants, or sometimes they are being called variants of concern. And these three topics are for us important to be covered, to be prepared for. Therefore now this big follow-up contract with BioNTech Pfizer. But of course we will also explore other contracts, for example, based on other technologies like the protein-based technologies. The key point is to keep our options open, and we have seen how crucial it is for us to have a broad portfolio of vaccines to be prepared for unexpected issues. Finally, of course, we have discussed the role of the European Union in the global vaccination effort. And when it comes to the proposal of a temporary TRIPS waiver for vaccine intellectual property rights, as I've said before, I think it is very important we should be open to this discussion. We should also, for example, have a close look at the role of licensing. These are important topics to discuss, but we should be aware of the fact that these are topics for the long term. It's not a topic for the short term or the medium term. And we should therefore not lose sight of the main urgencies now, which is ramping up indeed the vaccine production as quickly as possible and ensuring that they are fairly and evenly distributed. So there are three topics that should be tackled with a discussion about TRIPS waiver or licensing. And this is, first of all, export. The European Union is the pharmacy of the world and open to the world. Up to today, in the European Union, 400 million doses of vaccines have been produced. And 50% of them, 200 million doses, have been exported to 90 different countries in the world. So we invite others to do the same. This is the best way right now, in the short term, to approach the bottlenecks and the lack of vaccines worldwide. The second point, indeed, is that we have to support COVAX. We have massively financed COVAX, as well as sharing our vaccines, both via COVAX and bilaterally with our neighborhood. Some member states have already shared, like Romania, France, and Austria, but also committed to do so, like Spain, like Portugal, like Sweden, and I know that Poland is going to follow. And the third topic is indeed the investment in global manufacturing. We have invested a lot with the advanced purchase agreements in the manufacturing or scaling up of the manufacturing right now, as we see it. But there needs to be more investment in global manufacturing capacity. For example, the Commission, in partnership with Germany, is already helping to develop local pharmaceutical manufacturing capacity in the southern part of Africa. And we are also supporting the development of the Institut Pasteur in Dakar in Senegal, together with the European Investment Bank, France, Germany, and Belgium. So these are just examples how to approach that topic. And last but not least, the European Commission is working on a flagship Team Europe initiative with our African partners to very concretely build up capacity in Africa. This topic was also, and this is the bridge, the topic, of course, that has been discussed with Prime Minister Modi. Indeed, it was for us a very important historical moment. First of all, to make sure that the European Union stands firmly at the side of India in this most challenging time, and we assured the Prime Minister of our solidarity and the support with all what is needed at the moment, being from oxygen generators to medicines and ventilators. 17 EU member states have supported worth over 100 million euros of supply that has been brought to India and is being brought in the next days through the EU Civil Protection Mechanism, and further assistance will follow. It was a remarkable summit because it widened the scope and the view on the untapped potential in the relationship of the European Union and India. And I really want to thank you, Antonio, that you seized your presidency to organize this summit. This is outstanding, this is historical, and it was impressive to see around the table of the 27 to have this extraordinary summit. It is a landmark moment, and indeed we have agreed that we will resume the negotiations on a free trade agreement. If you just keep in mind that free trade agreement negotiations started in 2007, have been stopped in 2013, and nothing happened in between, and now they are being resumed. It shows the importance of this summit. We will also launch negotiations on investment protection and of negotiations on the important topic of geographical indications. There were other discussions on other topics like cooperation on the World Trade Organization reform, regulatory cooperation, and resilient value chains. We also discussed the topic of climate change. India is the fourth biggest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world, and it is impressive to see how India is stepping forward now in this topic too. We discussed the importance of committing to climate neutrality and complete phase out from fossil fuels, for example, in view of the crucial UN COP26, so to have a very ambitious goal, because the experience with India in the past showed that once India has set itself a goal, it delivers. India is delivering on the goal it has set itself, so it is important that ambitious goals are being taken for the COP26. And last but not least, our partnership on connectivity. It is the second only of such a connectivity partnership after Japan. It will bring our two regions closer in mobility and transport, but of course also in the digital field. India is a powerhouse of digitization, so this shows the width, and these were only a few examples of the cooperation with India. Thanks again to Antonio Costa for having convened this summit.
Thank you, Madam President. Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Muito obrigado.
Thank
Eu
you.
queria começar por agradecer
I'd like to begin
à Comissão
by
Europeia, na
thanking the
pessoa do Ursula von
European
der Leyen,
Commission,
e ao
President von
Conselho,
der
na pessoa do Charles
Leyen,
Michel,
and the President
o
of the
verdadeiro
European
trabalho de
Council,
equipa
Charles
que
Michel,
desenvolvemos
for the great
ao longo de
teamwork
mais de
that
ano
we've done together over
para
more
termos
than a
chegado
year
a esta
in order
cimeira
to
com
achieve this
alcançando
summit
com sucesso
today,
dois
where
dos
we have
principais
reached,
objetivos da presidência
we've
portuguesa.
achieved
Em
two of the
primeiro
main
lugar,
objectives of the
a
Portuguese
realização
presidency.
desta cimeira
Firstly,
com
to
a Índia.
actually hold a
A
summit
Europa e a
with
Índia são os dois
Europe
maiores
and India
espaços
are the
democráticos do
two
mundo e a
largest
sua parceria
democracies
estratégica
in
tem uma
the
enorme
world,
relevância
and
do
our
ponto de
joint
vista
strategy
geoestratégico,
is
na
vital.
defesa do multilateralismo e na
Geostrategy is
junção dos
important.
esforços
We need to
para
work for
enfrentarmos juntos
multilateralism,
grandes
and together,
questões
working
globais.
together,
Hoje,
we
o
can
Covid-19,
resolve many
seguramente durante
global
muito
challenges.
tempo, o
COVID
combate
today,
contra as alterações
and
climáticas.
also fighting
Pela primeira
climate change.
vez, estas cimeiras
For
não
the
foram
first
cimeiras
time,
meramente
these
institucionais,
summits weren't
como as anteriores,
merely
onde estava
institutional
presente
summits like in
o
the past,
Primeiro-Ministro indiano,
where we've
a
had
presidência da
the
Comissão, a
Indian
presidência
Prime
do
Minister,
Conselho e
we've
a
had the
presidência
Council, the
rotativa.
President
Pela primeira
of
vez
the European
tivemos
Council,
uma cimeira
the
onde o Primeiro-Ministro indiano esteve com as instituições europeias,
the Portuguese
mas também com os
presidency, but
27
we also
líderes da
had
União.
the 27
E
leaders
é
of the European
muito
Union
significativo,
present in this
no
summit.
momento
So
em
this
que
was
a
very
Índia vive
significant,
uma situação
especially at
tão
the time when
dramática
India is
do
going
ponto de
through
vista
such
do
a
Covid.
dramatic
O
situation
Primeiro-Ministro
because of
Narendra Modi
COVID.
não tenha
The Prime Minister
adiado
Narendra
esta cimeira,
Modi
a tenha
did
mantido,
not,
e
however,
apesar de ter
postpone
sido
this
feita
summit.
através de videoconferência,
We had to hold
ter
the
tido
summit
resultados tão
virtually,
importantes.
but we managed to
Comissão já
achieve
sublinhou,
significant results.
desde
As Charles Michel
2013
said,
que estavam
ever since
interrompidas as
2013, when the
para
negotiations
acordo de
began,
comércio e
we've been
acordo de
working
investimento.
on a trade and
Desta
investment
vez,
agreement.
não só decidimos relançar
Now,
estas
we've not
negociações,
only
como
agreed
abrir
to
negociações
relaunch
para a
these
proteção das
negotiations
indicações geográficas
to
e
work on
avançamos
geographic
com uma parceria
indicators, for example.
estratégica
We
na
also
área da
are going to embark on
conectividade,
a
no
strategic
digital, na
cooperation
energia,
on
no transporte
connectivity,
e nas
digital
relações entre
terms,
os povos.
transport,
Creio,
and
por isso,
cooperation,
poder dizer
people-to-people
que
cooperation. I'd
esta
like to
foi uma
say
cimeira
that
de
this
sucesso
was the
e que as portas ficam
a
abertas
successful
para que possamos
summit that
avançar
has
e
opened
concretizar
doors that will
rapidamente
allow us to make
estes
progress
acordos com
and
a Índia.
hopefully rapidly conclude
Estes
an
acordos
agreement
são
with
fundamentais para o
India.
relançamento
Now, these
também da economia
sort of
global,
agreements are
também para a
vital
nossa
to
economia,
relaunch the
também para a
global
economia
economy, our
indiana
economy,
e por isso
Indian
acho que agora
economy,
temos todas as
and this
condições
is why
para acelerar
we
na
are
concretização
ready now
destes acordos de
to
comércio e
speed
de
up our
investimento
work
e de proteção
and achieve
das indicações geográficas.
Agreement
Segunda
on
dimensão
trade and
muito
investment
importante,
as well as on
colocar
geographic
o pilar
indication.
social no centro das
The second
políticas
point I want to
europeias.
address is that
Ontem
of the
tivemos
social
momento histórico que foi a
pillar,
assinatura
the pillar
entre
of
as
social
instituições
rights.
e todos os parceiros
Once again,
sociais de compromisso.
we managed
Esse
to bring
compromisso foi
together
depositado nas
institutions
mãos
and
do
social
Presidente do
partners
Conselho
and reached a
e hoje foi a
compromise,
vez do Conselho aprovar
a commitment that
declaração
I've now
do
handed to the
E não
President
querendo
of the
ler
European
aqui a
Council,
extensa declaração
and
do
I'd
Porto,
like,
há
I don't want
6
to
pontos fundamentais
read out
que
the
eu gostaria
Porto
de
Declaration
enfatizar,
here. It's
porque
fairly long,
traduzem
but there
compromisso
are
efetivo
6
do
aspects I
Conselho
would like to
relativamente
focus
à
on,
importância do pilar
which
social.
I think shows
Em
how
primeiro lugar,
important the social pillar is.
a afirmação clara
Firstly,
de que a Europa
a
tem de ser o
clear
continente da
affirmation
coesão
that
social
Europe has to
e da
be the
prosperidade.
continent of social
Isso
rights and
significa,
prosperity.
designadamente,
And this
que o
particularly
pilar
means
europeu dos
that the
direitos
European
sociais
pillar
é
of social
elemento
rights
fundamental da
is
recuperação,
absolutely fundamental for
que a
cooperation.
sua aplicação irá
The
intensificar a
implementation
transição
of this pillar
digital,
will
ecológica
speed
e
up the
equitativa,
digital, environmental
contribuirá para alcançar uma
transition,
convergência
green
social
transition. It will
e
lead to
económica
social and
ascendente
economic
e para dar resposta
convergence
aos desafios
and
demográficos.
will provide
Em segundo
response
lugar,
to
o
demographic
Conselho
challenges.
congratulou-se
Secondly,
com a
the
realização
Council
da Cimeira com os parceiros
welcomed
sociais
the
e sublinhou mais
summit
uma
with the
vez
social partners and
como
underscored
o
once
diálogo
again
social
how
é um elemento
social
central
dialogue
da
is
nossa
the
economia
key
social de
element
mercado.
of our social
Terceiro
market
aspecto
economy.
muito
A
importante.
third, very important
O Conselho diz
aspect,
claramente:
the Council
estamos
stated quite
determinados a
clear,
continuar
we
a
are
aprofundar a
determined to
aplicação do
continue
pilar
to
europeu dos direitos
implement
sociais.
the European
O plano de
pillar of
ação
social
apresentado
rights.
pela
The
Comissão
action plan tabled
fornece
by the
orientações
Commission
úteis para a
lays
aplicação
down
deste
very
pilar
useful
europeu dos direitos
guidance
sociais,
for implementing
nomeadamente nas
these
áreas do
rights,
emprego, das
especially
competências, da
focusing on
saúde e da
employment,
proteção
training,
social.
and health and
O
social
Conselho
rights.
congratula-se em
The
particular com a
Council
essência de grandes metas
welcomes
quantificadas
the
por parte da Comissão Europeia
ambitious
em
targets
matéria de
set by
empregabilidade,
the
em
Commission
matéria de
on
formação e
employability,
em matéria
on
de combate
training
à pobreza.
and
E
fighting
também
poverty.
com a construção de um conjunto de painel de indicadores
There will be a
que
whole
têm que
host
ser
of
inseridos no quadro
indicators
da coordenação das
that
políticas
will
económicas
be used to
no âmbito
coordinate
do semestre
economic and
europeu.
social policies, and this
Significa
will be
isto
done in
que o
conjunction
Conselho
with the
aceita que
European
o
semester,
semestre europeu
which means
não
that the
seja
Council
só
accepts that the
semestre
European
de
semester
revisão
isn't just
dos
there to
critérios
review
macroeconómicos, dos
macroeconomic
critérios de estabilidade
criteria,
financeira, mas passará a ser
financial
também
stability criteria.
uma
It's also
avaliação
there
do
to
contexto
act
social
as
da União
a
Europeia.
monitoring of the
Em
social
quarto
progress
lugar,
in Europe.
o
Fourthly,
compromisso de passar da
commitment
proteção
has been
à criação do
made
emprego
to
e melhorar
not
a
only
qualidade do
create jobs,
emprego.
but to improve the
Sendo que
quality
melhorar
of
a
jobs.
aplicação,
Because
a qualidade do emprego
unless we improve
significa a
the quality
aplicação dos
of jobs,
princípios do pilar
we
europeu dos
cannot
direitos
implement
sociais,
the
de forma a
social
avançar a
pillar
nível da União
rights.
Europeia
We
e dos
need
Estados
to
membros
ensure that
com
at an
os
EU level
trabalhos
and a member
legislativos
state
e
level
não
we
legislativos que
need
sejam
to
necessários. Isto implica
implement
designadamente
necessary
colocar a
legislation.
educação e as
We need
competências
to make sure
no
that
centro
education
da
and
nossa
skills are
ação
at the very
política.
heart of our
Investir
political
na
action.
educação, na formação profissional,
Education,
na aprendizagem ao longo da vida, na melhoria de
lifelong
competências e na
learning,
requalificação são
upskilling and
fundamentais.
reskilling.
Ao
These
mesmo
are
tempo
absolutely vital.
que
At the
as
same
mudanças
time,
relacionadas com a transição digital, a
when looking at
inteligência
the
artificial, o
digital
teletrabalho,
transition,
a economia das
AI,
plataformas,
teleworking,
exigem
the
uma
platform
atenção
economy,
especial a
these
fim de
areas
reforçar
also
os
need to be
direitos
focused on
dos
in order to
trabalhadores,
boost
os
the
sistemas
rights
de
of our
segurança
workers,
social
our
e a
social
saúde
security
e a segurança no trabalho.
systems and health and safety
Quinto
at work
elemento, muito
also are
importante.
essential to this. A fifth element,
O Conselho
which is
afirma
equally
estar
important,
empenhado em
the
reduzir as
Council is
desigualdades
committed to
em
reducing
termos e
inequalities
em assegurar salários
and
justos,
to make sure that
bem como em
everyone
lutar contra a
has a
exclusão
fair
social
wage.
e a pobreza,
We need to combat social
e em
exclusion
particular
and
a
poverty,
pobreza
and in
infantil.
particular child
em
poverty.
combater os riscos de
We
exclusão
need
de
to
grupos
do
especiais,
away with the
especialmente
risk of
sociais particularmente
exclusion
vulneráveis,
for vulnerable
como são
groups.
os empregados de longa duração,
We need to
os
help
idosos,
the
as pessoas
long-term
portadoras de
unemployed,
deficiências
the
ou as
elderly,
pessoas
those with
sem abrigo.
disabilities, or those
Compromete-se
who are
também no
homeless.
combate
We also
contra a
need
discriminação
to combat
e, em particular,
discrimination
contra a
and,
discriminação
in particular,
baseada no género,
gender-based
enfatizando a
discrimination.
necessidade
We
de eliminar as
emphasize the
disparidades
need to
de género no
do away
emprego,
with any
designadamente em
gender-based
matéria
discrimination
salarial.
at the workplace, especially as
fim,
regards
o compromisso de
salaries.
dar uma
And then
atenção
finally,
muito
a
especial
commitment to
ao que diz respeito à
focus
política para os
particularly
jovens,
on
que
the
têm uma
youth.
taxa de desemprego
We need a
muitíssimo
youth
elevada,
policy. Youth
dificuldades
unemployment
de
is
acesso
particularly
à
high.
habitação
It is very
acessível
difficult for them to
e alta
have
dimensão da sua
access
vida
to jobs.
e que constituem, cuja situação de precariedade
The
constitui
current
hoje
situation
mesmo
means
a maior
that they are
ameaça
in a
ao
precarious
equilíbrio
situation.
demográfico
And
e ao
this is the
futuro
greatest
da
threat
Europa.
to the demography
Creio que
and
são por
the
isso
future
compromissos
of Europe.
muito
So all
claros
these
por parte
commitments
do
are
Conselho,
absolutely key.
que tendo tomado em devida
Council
conta o
is
compromisso que foi
committed to
assumido
these. We
pelos
entered
parceiros
into
sociais,
these
se
commitments
compromete
together with
agora a
the
agir
social partners.
com um conjunto
So it is
de
up to the Council
afirmações
now
muito
to
concretas
act. We
que
have
cumprem
very
o objetivo que
tangible
nos tínhamos proposto
objectives
de
and
recolocar
targets.
o pilar social
And we need to
no
make
centro
sure
das
that
políticas
the
europeias.
social pillar
Creio por isso
comes
que
back to
podemos
the
sair
very heart
daqui
of all EU
com
policies.
a convicção reforçada de
I
que
think we
quer a
will
Comissão,
redouble
quer
our
o Conselho,
efforts.
quer o
The
Parlamento
Commission,
Europeu
the
estão todos alinhados
Parliament
no mesmo
and the
objetivo,
Council
de
all
dar
now
toda
share
a
the same
prioridade
objectives,
a uma recuperação
namely to
que seja
boost our
baseada na
cooperation.
transição digital,
And our work
na
has to be
transição
based on
climática,
digital
mas que seja
transition,
também uma
climate
recuperação
transition,
justa,
but it has to
que
be
não
a
deixe ninguém por
fair
trás, abra
cooperation
oportunidades para todos
that
e,
leaves
sobretudo, abra
nobody
oportunidades
behind, that
para
gives
termos
everyone
mais,
an
melhor
opportunity,
emprego
and
para o futuro,
particularly to
em
make sure
particular
that we have
para as jovens
more and
gerações.
better jobs in the future, especially for the young generation.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. And if I may, we just released on our Council website the joint statement as well, which I wanted to point out on the EU-India meeting, so please check it out. We're going to take a couple of questions here in the room first. Susanna Freshes, you go first. Please, you'll have to stand up and go to the microphone under COVID restrictions.
Can I take my mask off?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Susanna Fresh, SIC Expresso. Madam President, I would like to ask you, first of all, regarding the IP waiver, were you somehow surprised by this US move? Did you speak to President Biden before he announced this move? And I understand that this is not going to solve the problem in the short term, but eventually the long term is going to be there. Shouldn't the European Union start this discussion now at OMC? Monsieur le Président, on parle aujourd'hui des inégalités entre femmes et hommes, le pilier social. Il n'y a pas longtemps, vous avez dit au Parlement européen que vous allez vous engager vous-même pour mobiliser les États membres pour débloquer la directive sur les inégalités hommes-femmes parmi les administrateurs non exécutifs des sociétés cotées en bourse. Vous l'avez fait aujourd'hui, ça c'est la question. Quand comptez-vous débloquer cette directive? Senhor Primeiro-Ministro, gostaria de perguntar-lhe se acha que é possível ainda um entendimento sobre o salário mínimo, um salário mínimo justo europeu durante a presidência portuguesa no seio do Conselho.
A European minimum wage or a fair wage during the Portuguese presidency.
Discussion concerning the IP waivers. So the discussion is there. So if you ask, shouldn't we start it now, it is there. And it is an important discussion. The point that I want to emphasize is, yes, we are willing to go into that discussion, but then we need a real 360-degree view on it, and we should not shy away from other topics that are in this big question: where do vaccines come from for the whole world? And indeed, here the discussion is either IP waivers, that is, does it really bring more vaccines? So how is the knowledge transfer? How are you able to make sure that the skilled workforce is there, that the capacities are there, that the processes are going in a way that at the very end you have safe and effective vaccines? We have seen in the production process right now with the approved vaccines how difficult it is to have a stable delivery of vaccines. We see production sites that do not bring any kind of yield. So even today there are companies who are not able to really deliver on the vaccines in a very complex production process. But I think we should indeed discuss it. We should also discuss widely the question of licensing and the price of licensing. But again, this is something which will not bring within the next month, perhaps the next year, any vaccines. But we need vaccines now. And therefore, the investment in capacities as we have it today was and is good, should go on. It should be more extended to other regions of the world. This has already started. But the second point is those regions who are producing vaccines at large scale should share these vaccines through export. And again, I can only repeat, we are the only democratic region in the world that is producing vaccines at large scale and exporting on average 50% of the production. This brings vaccines right now. 200 million doses have been distributed to almost 90 countries. This is effective. And the second point is indeed sharing of doses, so not only export but also sharing of doses through COVAX is of utmost importance, and on top then the investment in capacities. By that, what I want to say is, let's lead the whole discussion. Let's invite everybody to join in vaccine sharing, everybody to join in export, fair export, everybody to join in the investment of capacities not only in the own region but also abroad, and the discussion on licensing and IP waivers.
Merci beaucoup. Quelques mots sur la question que vous m'adressez. En effet, au Parlement européen, j'ai pris l'engagement de me mobiliser politiquement pour faire avancer un certain nombre de sujets qui touchent directement à l'égalité hommes-femmes. La directive que vous mentionnez est en fait bloquée dans le cadre du Conseil de l'Union depuis à peu près 10 années. Et mes équipes, avec les équipes de la présidence rotative, travaillent afin de voir de quelle manière on peut ramener ce dossier à l'agenda politique. Et ça signifie aussi que je vais continuer à tenter de faire un plaidoyer sur ce sujet-là pour faire avancer cet engagement qui est un engagement important. De la même manière, dans le cadre du sommet social hier, dans le cadre des discussions que nous avons eues aujourd'hui, d'autres thèmes ont été aussi abordés qui touchent à l'égalité entre les femmes et les hommes, comme naturellement la question des salaires. À travail égal, salaire égal, ça doit être aussi une mobilisation pour l'ensemble de l'Union européenne. Et j'espère que l'on pourra faire bouger les lignes sur ce sujet, même si je sais que ce sont des sujets qui sont difficiles depuis longtemps pour certains États membres. Et nous souhaitons pouvoir, avec la Commission et la présidence rotative, ramener plus en haut de l'agenda ces thèmes importants qui traduisent les valeurs européennes.
Bom, as presidências portuguesas têm método de trabalho já muito consolidado. Poucas declarações proclamatórias, muito trabalho com descrição, bons resultados sempre partilhados. É assim que com o Parlamento Europeu temos trabalhado nestes meses, fechando toda a legislação já sobre o quadro financeiro plurianual, sobre o Fundo de Recuperação, desbloqueando a situação da Conferência do Futuro da Europa, que amanhã, aliás, será oficialmente aberta, tendo concluído a lei do clima. Relativamente à proposta diretiva do salário mínimo, estamos naquela segunda fase, que é o trabalho discreto. Vamos ver se temos bons resultados para partilhar.
Next question is for Marco Bressolin, La Stampa.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Sorry, it's the habit. Concerning the manufacturing vaccine outside EU, what can EU do concretely? I mean, are you going to invest EU money to push for partnership with the private sector? Are you going to push the pharma company to share the technology? And the question for President Costa. Today, President von der Leyen announced the new contract with Pfizer for 1.8 billion doses. That's a lot. It's enough to inoculate vaccine 2 times for the entire European population. Are you and your colleagues ready to share part of these vaccines with the rest of the world, with the poorest country? Thank you.
So, what the pharmaceutical or what the investment in capacities abroad is concerned? Indeed, this is the approach to have financing schemes. As I said, one example is Institut Pasteur in Senegal already, where the European Investment Bank is involved. But of course, from European funds, there needs also to be a public part of the investment done too. And indeed, we have started discussions with some pharmaceutical companies who also have already their ideas how they could extend their capacities in a way that is beneficial for example, our African partners. There is, for example, the model of container-based labs ready to go that is being developed, because of course there's a lot of detail. You build up a capacity, and the container-based model gives you the opportunity to come with a, let's say, a ready-to-go lab in a small scale, where you train then the workforce to achieve the skills that are necessary. But the first step to build up the whole capacity is avoided, and you can start at a smaller scale immediately with the training of people, but of course also with results that are there. And indeed, if I may also have a look at the second question you were asking, the 1.8 billion is a lot. And therefore, there is already built in the contract that it includes the possibility for the member states to donate or resell doses. So the amount of doses is so large in order to be able to also serve our neighborhood, for example. And this is a principle too that we invest now in a potential risk to come. We do not know what's going to happen, whether we're going to have escape variants or not. But we have already a width of an amount of doses in the portfolio that is potentially more than we will need, and that we know from the experience now that this is good because you can export, but you can also donate, or for lower price you can resell.
Un mot pour simplement compléter ce que Ursula a indiqué. Je crois sur le premier point que vous soulevez, que l'approche qui est mise en œuvre, notamment avec plusieurs pays africains et des partenaires privés, est l'approche la plus efficace pour intégrer de manière globale les différentes dimensions de cette question. Il y a évidemment un accès de propriété intellectuelle, mais il y a d'autres aspects. Les transferts de technologies, la capacité de former aussi le personnel, de développer, notamment en Afrique, plus de capacités sur le plan pharmaceutique, sur le terrain des vaccins, mais pas seulement sur le terrain des vaccins. And a second important point, we are discussing with the African Union, because in Africa there are certainly a short list of countries totally committed in order to try to play a stronger role in this field. The European Investment Bank has certainly also a role to play, and it means a support by the governments, by the public authorities in Europe, in Africa, but also an important role for the private sector. And I repeat that in my opinion, in the midterm, this is the best way, I think, the most efficient way, I think, in order to increase the capacity in Africa to produce more pharmaceutical products, vaccines included.
Thank you, President. We'll now turn to... excuse me, Madam. Prime Minister, sorry.
Ok, thank you. Todos estamos conscientes no Conselho Europeu que ninguém estará protegido enquanto não houver uma imunização à escala global. Por isso, temos todos, a União Europeia tem sido exemplar na sua contribuição para o COVAX. A Comissão Europeia criou o Team Europe e, no âmbito do Team Europe, os Estados-membros têm vindo a contribuir de uma forma conjunta para haver um apoio aos países mais necessitados, e vários Estados-membros têm, numa relação bilateral, partilhado também as suas próprias vacinas. E, portanto, esse princípio é um princípio que está assente e que todos estamos a seguir.
Thank you. We're now going to our Indian journalist joining us remotely. Can I call on Nayanima Basu, please? Nayanima, can you hear us?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Could you please point out to whom you want to address your question to?
Well, I think Madam can address the question. Anybody can address the question. Basically, I wanted to understand how are we going to handle this free trade agreement along with the investment protection agreement, because earlier the decision was to integrate both these pacts, but now there is going to be a standalone investment agreement. Also, on the free trade agreement, I would be grateful if you can answer what are some of the issues that are going to come up again, that are going to be the sticky issues, which earlier used to be duties on wine and spirits, automobile tariffs and all those things. Do they still come on the table once again as we resume the talks? Thank you so much for the opportunity.
So, to start with your latest, the last part of your question, this is way too early to be able to go in such detail. The free trade agreement is going to be negotiated in parallel with the investment protection agreement and in parallel with the geographic indicators. So this is all three in parallel at the same time, so that we move forward rapidly. And this is for us, I think, a way to approach it so that all different sides have the most benefit from it.
Last question is for Siddhant Sibal, also joining us remotely.
Hello, Your Excellencies. My question to you is, we know that Indo-Pacific is something where EU is keen on. What kind of practical cooperation are you looking with India when it comes to Indo-Pacific? Also, when it comes to China, where does your bet lie? Is it with Beijing or is it with New Delhi?
Mr. President.
No, it's certain that for the European Union, this region is very important. We would like to strengthen the ties with this region. That's why this meeting with the Prime Minister Modi was so important today. And there are different important fields that we would like to tackle. We just mentioned the economic cooperation and trade, investment, for example. But there are other important topics like security, like the regional concerns also. We have also the same multilateral approach because we think that we need to strengthen the international cooperation. And certainly we face very important global challenges, the digital transition, the climate transition, and it's possible to tackle those challenges only if we decide to work together, and we hope that it will be possible in the future to develop the ties with this important region for us.
This concludes our press conference of today. Thank you to the Portuguese presidency. See you soon in Brussels.
Boa tarde.
Merci.